Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horse, and welcome back, my dear, wonderful, marvelous, stupendous, amazing scholars. I hope you're all doing well this evening, or morning, or afternoon, or wherever it is within your temporal frame of reference. Hello there, Julian 20. Welcome, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum, which has been said in this book. A little fun back there. In fact, I think this book originated the song. It's interesting, isn't it? You never think about that sort of thing. you, I've had me and Horace and I, proper English, Matsu, proper English. Horace and I have had quite a bit of getting prepared for tonight's stream. First off, before we started, my dear, hello there, cool skeleton. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I was just about to tell you all my misadventures before we started. Horace and I were preparing the setup for streaming for you, dear scholars, and my laptop conveyance blue screened just before the stream was going to start. Luckily, I was able to recover it, but it was I wasn't panicking. I was more bemused than anything. I mean, of all the things that can happen before a stream, it was that. And I'm still not sure what the result of that was. And of course, the other thing was a bit of a temporal interference. When I first was testing it after the little issue, I found that I was, for some reason, stuck in this position the entire time, like this. It's very hard to do this, but I was stuck like this, and I don't think that would be very concurrent for a reading stream. Anyway, so we've had a bit of a fun time just getting ready for everything. So, my dear scholars, how are you doing? How are all of you wonderful scholars doing this fine evening, morning, afternoon, or whenever it may be? Hopefully better than I was. Cool skeleton. Most laptops are pretty weak. I may need to trade in mine for a computer. Ah, yes. I will let you in on a little secret. I am also working on. Oh, thank you for the raid, Crusader Corrupted. Welcome. I think it's the first time I've caught you raiding me on screen before during a stream. Oh, thank you. And you all got to see my little rating icon there. Hello there, blah blah. Good to see you. Oh my goodness. We're being raided by a Crusader. Hopefully better than the last few times in history, if you know what I mean. Julian 20, love it. Yes. Believe it or not, there are friendly book squids. Well, there's one friendly book squid somewhere. He's red. He's somewhere. Crusader Crafted. Yes, I got to see the raid alert. Darth Permulis. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Oh yes, everyone loves that story. Blah blah. Hi Horace, I love you. Horace says he loves you back as well. He loves all of you. Where was I? Oh, I got distracted. Um, oh, how are you all doing? That's what I was asking. We've talked enough about me. Let's talk about you. How are you all doing? Hope you're all doing well. Better than me, I hope. What am I doing here? Yeah. Julian 20, fabulous. Well, that's good. Good. Crusader Corruptor, doing good. Now I need food. Well, go get yourself something to eat, dear Crusader. Food is very important. Cool Skeleton, pretty well. Pikmin. Pikmin 4 demo just released. It was amazing. Oh, I had to hear it. I didn't know the demo was out. I've thought of playing the game, but oh my goodness, those numbers. I've thought of playing the game, but I am terrible at multitasking with games like that, so it kind of scares me away. I'm not very good at doing games where it requires you to do multiple things at the same time, and I always, I would feel guilty trying to hurt little Pikmin like that and letting them get hurt. You don't want the Pikmin to get hurt. It would make you sad. It would make me sad at least. But yes, I'm glad to hear you all good. Darth Prowse, I'm good. As a Sith Lord, I live off of coffee and junk food and need no actual food. LOL. If only that was true. Ah, yes. If only such things were true. It would be nice. Cool Skeleton. Pikmin 4 seems to be more forgiving. It is super sad to see them perish. It is super sad to see them perish. Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, you get attached to them. You don't want to see any of them die. No. No. But I digress. I should probably talk about what we're streaming tonight. Shouldn't I? Tonight, we are continuing our reading of Treasure Island. We're about halfway through the book, I believe, actually. A little bit more than halfway through. Um, as we left off last time, Jim discovered the poor marooned Ben Gunn, who has some mysterious ties with Captain Flint. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Squire Trelawney, and the captain have escaped from the vessel which has been taken over by pirates and are now trying to make their way to the stockyard for further safety. Cool Skeleton, exiled, marooned. Oh, for all newcomers, I should introduce myself. How rude of me. I am Matsu Quinox, omniversal interdimensional librarian. This is my friend, companion, and co-host Horace. I am a variety slash reading streamer. Tuesdays I usually do gaming nights, and Thursdays are reading nights. Um, I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm really excited to be able to share this book with you, as I always do. Another thing to keep in mind when I read, I do voice acting along with it, so it won't be a straight read if you're looking for that. This will be a voice acted, let's call it a dramatic reading, as it were. A little bit of reader's theater, I guess you could call it. I think that's actually the term for it. So, my dear, wonderful, marvelous, stupendous scholars, shall we continue our adventure on Treasure Island? I'm excited to read. Oh, these nights are so much fun for me. Solar Coast. Oh, hello there, Solar Coast. Welcome. Let's continue. Cool Skeleton. Yar. All right, then. We'll continue with Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 18. Narrative continued by the Doctor. End of the first day's fighting. Alien 20. Piss the right. What? We made our best speed across the strip of wood that now divided us from the stockade, and at every step we took the voices of the buccaneers ran nearer. At every step we took, the voices of the buccaneers ran nearer. Soon we could hear their footfalls as they ran, and the cracking of the branches as they breasted across a bit of thicket. Breasted? Breasted? I can't possibly imagine what breasted is supposed to be. I'm guessing it's supposed to be a sort of movement footfall, but the phrasing. I mean, how do you even use that as a phrase for running? Breasted. Huh. Oh well. Cool Skeleton. Interesting terminology. That is interesting, to say the least. Hmm. Solar Coast. It's another word for chest. Yes, it is another word for chest, but as they breasted across the bit of thicket, it just seems like such an odd combination, you know. I began to see we should have a brush for it in earnest, and looked to my priming. Captain, said I, Trelawney is dead shot. Give him your gun. His own is useless. Darth Primus breasted, yeah, I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth before I get in trouble. Yeah. Cool skeleton. I think it means puffing their chests out. How would you hear that, though? Seems such an odd thing. Huh. Hmm. Oh well. They exchanged guns. They exchanged guns, and Trelawny, silent and cool as he had been since the beginning of the bustle, hung a moment on his heel to see that all was fit for service. At the same time, observing Grey to be unarmed, I handed him my cutlass. It did all our hearts good to see him spit in his hand, knit his brows, and make the blade sing through the air. It was plain from every line of his body that our new hand was worth his salt. 40 paces farther we came to the edge of the wood, and saw the stockade in front of us. We struck the enclosure about the middle of the south side, and almost at the same time 7 mutineers, Job Anderson the boatswain at their head, the boatswain, trying to remember how to pronounce this, boatswain I think, at their head, appeared in full cry at the southwestern corner. They paused as if taken aback. Before they recovered, not only the squire and I, but Hunter and Joyce from the blockhouse had time to fire. The 4 shots came in rather a scattering volley, but they did the business. One of the enemy actually fell, and the rest, without hesitation, turned and plunged into the trees. Doth promise, oh, I have a very prideful stuffed animal watching stream with me. Ah, that's wonderful. More audience for the stream. After reloading, we walked down the outside of the palisade to see to the fallen enemy. He was stone dead, shot through the heart. We began to rejoice over our good success, when just as that moment a pistol cracked in the bush, a ball whistled close past my ear, and poor Tom Woodworth stumbled and fell his length on the ground. Both the squire and I returned the shot, but as we had nothing to aim at, it is probable we only wasted powder. Then we reloaded, and turned our attention to poor Tom. The captain and Grey were already examining him, and I saw with half an eye that all was over. Ah, poor Tom. Don't think we knew much about him for very long. I believe the readiness of our return volley had scattered the mutineers once more, for we were suffered without further molestation to get the poor old gamekeeper hoised over the stockade and carried, groaning and bleeding, into the log-house. Poor old fellow! He had not uttered one word of surprise, complaint, fear, or even acquiescence from the very beginning of our troubles till now, when we had laid him down in the log-house to die. He had lain like a Trojan behind his mattress in the gallery. He had followed every order silently, doggedly, and well. He was the oldest of our party by a score of years, and now, sullen old serviceable servant, it was he that was to die. Doth promise. I say prideful because it's a rainbow-colored stuffed animal. Ah, I saw it as a prize in an arcade yesterday and knew it needed a good home, so I got it. Good. It's excellent that you took it to a very welcome home. As it should be. The squire dropped down beside him on his knees and kissed his hand, crying like a doctor. "Be I going, doctor?" he asked. "Tom, my man," said I, "you're going home." "Wish I had had a lick at him with the gun first," he replied. "Tom," said the squire, "say you forgive me, won't you?" "Would that be respectful like from me to you, squire?" was the answer. "Howsoever, so be it. Amen." After a little while of silence, he said he thought somebody might read a prayer. "It's the custom, sir," he added apologetically, and not long after, without another word, he passed away. In the meantime, the captain, whom I had observed to be wonderfully swollen about the chest and pockets, had turned out a great many various stores. The British colours, a Bible, a coil of stoutish rope, pen, ink, the log-book, and pounds of tobacco. He had found a longish fir tree lying felled and cleared in the enclosure, and with the help of Hunter he had set it up at the corner of the log house, where the trunks crossed and made an angle. Then, climbing on the roof, he had with his own hand bent and run up the colors. I just realized, where is this island? I mean, it sounds like there are some tropical plants there, but there's a lot of fir trees as well, and pine trees. So it can't be fully tropical. Julian 20 in the ocean. Oh, har, 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 har. Ha ha ha. Cool skeleton. Could be more northern. That is possible. I mean, it also depends on how long the voyage took. Because it doesn't seem. It doesn't sound like a tropical island per se. Julian 20 near Maine. I don't think so. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a tropical island like you would expect. Unless there are tropical islands in the Caribbean with pine trees. I'm not an expert, unfortunately, on Caribbean islands, so I couldn't say. It's possible, I suppose, but it just seems unlikely and very odd. Darth Planet, the island, it's up my. Oh my goodness. And to the left. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Oh my goodness, such language. Oh, such language. Shame. Mm. Plug your ears, horse. Hmm. We shall, we shall move on. Cool skeleton. Cool skeleton. A shame. Such wording. Oh, 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 oh. Oh dear. And for a skeleton such as you. Hmm. Such as you. Shame on you. Where was I? So it goes, well, cool skeleton, I'll go eat some soap. Yes, you do that. You do that. This seemed mightily to relieve him. He re-entered the log house and set about counting up the stores, as if nothing else existed. But he had an eye on Tom's passage for all that, and as soon as all was over, came forward with another flag, and reverently spread it on the body. Don't you take on, sir, he said, shaking the squire's hand. All's well with him. No fear for a hand that's been shot down in his duty to captain and owner. It mayn't be good divinity, but it's a fact. And then he pulled me aside. Dr. Livesey, he said, in how many weeks do you and Squire expect the consort? I told him it was a question not of weeks, but of months. That if we were not back by the end of August, Blandley was to send to find us, but neither sooner nor later. You can calculate for yourself, I said. Why, yes, returned the captain, scratching his head, and making a large allowance, sir, for all the gifts of Providence, I should say we were pretty close-hauled. How do you mean? I asked. Solicos brings out a bucket of soap bars. Cool Skeleton yummers. Darth Promise. Cool Skeleton. My parents used that on me as a kid. Didn't work, as you can see. Oh my goodness. Well, they used to do that with soap because soap was edible back in the day. It isn't anymore, and it's actually quite, yeah, not something you want. But soap was edible way back when. Way back when. It's a pity, sir. We lost that second load. That's what I mean, replied the captain. As for powder and shot will do, but the rations are short, very short. So short, Dr. Livesey, that we're perhaps as well without that extra month. And he pointed to the dead body under the flag. Just then, with a roar and a whistle, a round shot passed high above the roof of the log house, and plumped far beyond us in the wood. "Oh-ho!" said the captain. "Blaze away! You've little enough powder already, my lads. At this second trial the aim was better, and the ball descended inside the stockyard, scattering a cloud of sand but doing no further damage. "Captain," said the squire, "the house is quite invisible from the ship. It must be the flag they are aiming at. Would it not be wiser to take it in?" "Strike my colours!" cried the captain. "No, sir, not I." And as soon as he had said the words, I think we all agreed with him. For it was not only a piece of stout seamanly good feeling, it was good policy besides, and showed our enemies that we despised their cannonade. All through the evening they kept thundering away. Ball after ball flew over or fell short, or kicked up the sand in the enclosure, but they had to fire so high that the shot fell dead and buried itself in the soft sand. We had no ricochet to fear, and though one popped in through the roof of the log house and out again through the floor, we soon got used to that sort of horseplay, and minded it no more than cricket. That is one thing good about all this," observed the captain. "The wood in front of us is likely clear. The ebb has made a good while. Our stores should be uncovered. Volunteers to go and bring in pork." Gray and Hunter were the first to come forward. Well armed, they stole out of the stockade, but it proved a useless mission. The mutineers were bolder than we fancied, or they put more trust in Israel's gunnery, for 4 or 5 of them were busy carrying off our stores, and wading out with them to one of the gigs that lay close by, pulling an oar or so to hold her steady against the current. Silver was in the stern sheets in command, and every man of them was now provided with a musket from some secret magazine of their own. The captain sat down to his log, and here is the beginning of the entry. "Alexander Smollett, master. Darren Livesey, ship's doctor. Abraham Gray, carpenter's mate. John Trelawney, owner. John Hunter and Richard Joyce, owner's servants. Landsmen, being all that is left faithful to the ship's company, with stores for 10 days at short rations. Came ashore this day and flew British colours on the log house in Treasure Island. Thomas Redruth, owner's servant, landman, shot by the mutineers. James Hawkins, cabin boy." And at the same time I was wondering over poor Jim Hawkins' fate. A hail on the land side. "Someone's hailing us," said Hunter, who was on guard. "Doctor! Squire! Captain! Hello! Hunter, is that you?" came the cries, and I ran to the door in time to see Jim Hawkins, safe and sound, come climbing over the stockade. Ooh, Jim has finally returned. Now time for another little hydrate. My goodness. And we shall continue our adventure. Wonder what Jim's been up to since we last saw him. Oh, excuse me. Chapter 19. Narrative resumed by Jim Hawkins. The garrison in the stockyard. As soon as Ben Gunn saw the colors, he came to a halt, stopped me by the arm, and sat down. "Now," said he, "there's your friends, sure enough." "Far more likely it's the mutineers," I answered. "That!" he cried. "Why, in a place like this, where no one puts in but gentlemen of fortune, silver would fly the Jolly Roger. You don't make no doubt of that. No, that's your friends. There's been blows too, and I reckon your friends have had the best of it. And here they are ashore in the old stockyard, that was made years and years ago by Flint. Ah, he was the man to have a headpiece, was Flint. Barring rum, his match was never seen. He was afraid of none, not he. Only silver. Silver was that genteel." "Well," said I, "that may be so, and so be it, all the more reason that I should hurry on and join my friends." "Nay, mate," returned Ben, "not you. You're a good boy, or I mistook. But you're only a boy, all told. Now, Ben Gummy's fly. Rum wouldn't bring me there where you're going. Not rum wouldn't, till I see your born gentleman and get it on his word of honor, and you won't forget my words. A precious sight, that's what you'll say. A precious sight more confidence, and then nips him." And he pinched me the third time with the same air of cleverness. "And when Ben got his wanted, you know where to find him, Jim. Just where you found him today. And him that comes is to have a wise thing in his hands, and he's to come alone. Oh, and you say this, Ben Gunn, says you, has reasons of his own." "Well," said I believe I understand. You have something to propose, and you wish to see the squire or the doctor, and you're to be found where I found you. Is that all?" "And when sent you?" he added. "Why, from about north observation to about 6 bells." "Good," said I. "And now may I go?" "You won't forget?" he inquired anxiously. "Precious sight, and reasons of his own, says you. Reasons of his own, that's the mainstay, as between man and man. Well then," still holding me, "I reckon you can go, Jim. And Jim, if you was to see silver, you wouldn't go for to sell Ben Gunn. Wild horses wouldn't draw it from you. No, says I. And if them pirates camp ashore, Jim, what would you say but there'd be witters in the morning?" Here he was interrupted by a loud report, and a cannonball came tearing through the trees, and pitched in the sand, not 100 yards from where we two were talking. The next moment, each of us had taken to his heels in a different direction. I will admit Ben Gunn is a little bit hard to get a voice on. His dialogue is so weirdly patterned that sometimes it's a bit hard to wrap my head about how to read it properly. For a good hour to come, frequent reports shook the island, and balls kept crashing through the woods. I moved from hiding place to hiding place, always pursued, or so it seemed to me, by these terrifying missiles. But towards the end of the bombardment, though still I durst not venture in the direction of the stockade, where the balls fell oftenest, I had begun, in a manner, to pluck up my heart again, and after a long detour to the east, crept down among the shoreside trees. The sun had just set. The sea breeze was rustling and tumbling in the woods, and ruffling the gray, sorry, slip of the tongue there, the gray surface of the anchorage. The tide, too, was far out, and great tracts of sand lay uncovered. The air, after the heat of the day, chilled me through my jacket. The Hispaniola still lay where she had anchored, but sure enough, there was the Jolly Roger, the black flag of piracy flying from her peak. Even as I looked, there came another red flash and another report that sent the echoes clattering, and one more round shot whistled through the air. It was the last of the cannonade. So here's a little fun fact for you since they mentioned it. We usually think of the skulls and crossbones as the Jolly Roger, but every pirate had their own flag. So what you think of as the Jolly Roger was not necessarily the common symbol for a pirate. Most pirates came up with their own unique logo or their own unique design. I believe Blackbeard's design, for example, was a skeleton with horns holding a spear, which was pointed at a heart with a black background. So it wasn't what you would think of as the typical pirate symbol, but it was rather striking, as it were. There's a little pirate fun fact for you. Where was I? Oh, there we are. Darth Platypus. I actually knew that. Oh, interesting. Ghoul skeleton. Huh, I didn't know I could have had horns. I guess some skeletons can. Maybe you need to drink more calcium. Darth Platypus. But that's from watching One Piece. Ah, yes. One Piece actually got it right. That each pirate had their own unique Jolly Roger. I believe the author of One Piece did quite a bit of research on pirates. So he could make it make it more authentic in some way, or at least have the authentic feeling. I lay for some time, watching the bustle, which succeeded the attack. Men were demolishing something with axes on the beach near the stockyard. The poor jolly boat, I afterwards discovered. Away near the mouth of the river, a great fire was glowing among the trees, and between that point and the ship, one of the gigs kept coming and going, the men whom I have seen so gloomily shouting at the oars like children. But there was a sound in their voices which suggested rum. Mecha GM. Oh, hello there, Mecha GM. Welcome. Thank you for the first time chat. Yeah, Oda does lots of research on things. Yes, he does quite a bit of research on things. I will concur with that. At length, I thought I might return towards the stockyard. I was pretty far down on the low, sandy spit that encloses the anchorage to the east, and is joined at half water to Skeleton Island. And now, as I rose to my feet, I saw some distance further down the spit, and rising from among low bushes, an isolated rock, pretty high and peculiarly white in color. It occurred to me that this might be the white rock of which Ben Gunn had spoken, and that some day or other a boat might be wanted, and I should know where to look for one. Then I skirted around among the woods until I regained the rear, or shoreward side of the stockade, and was soon warmly welcomed by the faithful party. I had soon told my story, and began to look about me. The log house was made yeah. The log house was made of unsquared trunks of pine, roof, walls, and floor. The latter stood in several places as much as a foot or a foot and a half above the surface of the sand. There was a porch at the door, and under this porch the little spring welled up into an artificial basin of a rather odd kind, no other than a great ship's kettle of iron, with the bottom knocked out and sunk to her bearings, as the captain said, among the sand. Have a little drink. Private Maverick, yo ho ho, and a bottle of milk. Hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. Just in time for the reading. Little had been left beside the framework of the house, but in one corner there was a stone slab laid down by way of hearth, and an old rusty iron basket to contain the fire. The slopes of the knoll and all the inside of the stockyard had been cleared of timber to build the house, and we could see by the stumps what a fine and lofty grove had been destroyed. Most of the soil had been washed away or buried in drift after the removal of the trees. Only where the streamlet rained down from the kettle, a thick bed of moss and some ferns and little creeping bushes were still green among the sand. Very close around the stockyard, too close for defense, they said, the wood still flourished high and dense, all of fir on the land side, but towards the sea with a mixture of live oaks. So yeah, it seems to me by the descriptives, I don't hear a lot of tropical plants in this other than the ferns. They mention firs and they mention oak trees. So maybe this isn't in the Caribbean or the tropics, which makes for a very different, interesting setting. But they also mention it being hot, so it has to be somewhere near the tropics. Union 20 sounds like the Upper East Coast. That is true, though it is in the summer, I think. So it is maybe? I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research after this to find out where it is. Unless one of you fine scholars want to look it up. You all are free to do research as well. But I might look it up after the stream just to see where it's supposed to be set. The cold evening breeze of which I have spoken whistled through every chink of the rude building, and sprinkled the floor with a continual rain of fine sand. There was sand in our eyes, sand in our teeth, sand in our suppers, sand dancing in the spring at the bottom of the kettle, for all the world like porridge beginning to boil. Our chimney was a square hole in the roof. It was but a little part of the smoke that found its way out, and the rest edited about the house and kept us coughing and piping the eye. Add to this that Gray, the new man, had his face tied up in a bandage for a cut he had got in breaking away from the mutineers, and that poor old Tom Redruth, still unburied, lay along the wall, stiff and stark under the Union Jack. Oh my goodness, they have a corpse in the room. Especially in the heat, that can't smell well after a time. Ugh. If we had been allowed to sit idle, we should all have fallen in the blues. But Captain Smollett was never the man for that. All hands were called up before him, and he divided us into watches. The doctor and Gray and I for one, the Squire Hunter and Joyce upon the other. Tired as we all were, two were sent out for firewood. Two more were set to dig a grave for Redruth. Oh my goodness, thank the great eye that they did that. The doctor was named Cook. I was put sentry at the door, and the captain himself went from one to another, keeping up our spirits and laying a hand whenever it was wanted. From time to time the doctor came to the door for a little air and to rest his eyes, which was almost smoked out of his head, and whenever he did so he had a word for me. Darth Primus, it's in the Caribbean. Oh, interesting. That is interesting. I wouldn't have thought the Caribbean would have oak trees or fir trees, but maybe I'm mistaken. I've never been to the Caribbean, so I wouldn't quite know. And you always think when you think of the Caribbean, you think of the tropical trees and such. So, yeah, it's interesting. That man Smollett, he said once, is a better man than I am. And when I say that, I means a deal, Jim. Another time he came and was silent for a while. Then he put his head on one side and looked at me. "Is this Ben Gunn a man?" he asked. So it goes, perhaps a northernmost island like Bermuda or Grenada. That is possible too. That is possible. Cool skeleton. I guess it's like an Animal Crossing island. So are they half expecting a Tanuki to show up and demand that they pay rent then? Huh. That would make the story quite interesting, actually, wouldn't it? So that's where the treasure went then. Firefly. Most plants have a wide range of temperatures they can endure. Oh, good point. That is a good point. Cool skeleton, probably. Darth Vader. Google doesn't say where in the Caribbean it is. They're probably keeping it more or less not specific, since, of course, it is a fictional island. "Is this Ben Gunn a man?" he asked. "I do not know, sir," said I. "I'm not very sure whether he's sane." "If there's any doubt about the matter, he is," returned the doctor. "A man who's been 3 years biting his nails on a desert island, Jim, can't expect to appear as sane as you or me. It doesn't lie in human nature. Was it cheese you said he had a fancy for?" "Yes, sir, cheese," I answered. "Well, Jim," says he, "just see the good that comes of being dainty in your food. You've seen my snuff box, haven't you? And you never saw me take snuff. The reason being that in my snuff box I carry a piece of Parmesan cheese, a cheese made in Italy, very nutritious. Well, that's for Ben Gunn." Before supper was eaten, we buried old Tom in the sand, and stood round him for a while, bareheaded in the breeze. A good deal of firewood had been got in, but not enough for the captain's fancy, and he shook his head over it and told us we must get back to tomorrow rather livelier. Then when he had eaten our then when we had eaten our pork and each had a good stiff glass of brandy grog, the three chiefs got together in a corner to discuss our prospects. Death plan was cheese. Yummy. Yes, cheese is delicious. I love cheese. I might eat some cheese after this stream, in fact. Horace, make sure we have cheese out afterwards. It appears they were at their wits' end. It appears they were at their wits' end what to do. The stores being so low that we must have been starved into surrender long before help came. But our best hope, it was decided, was to kill off the buccaneers until they hauled down their flag or ran away with the Hispaniola. From 19 they were already reduced to 15. Two others were wounded, and one, at least, the man shot beside the gun, severely wounded, if he were not dead. Every time we had a crack at them, we were to take it. Every time we had a crack at them, we were to take it, saving our own lives with the extremest care. Beside that, we had two able allies, rum and the climate. Oh, hello there, Mr. Clition666. No, that is bad cheese. We do not talk about that cheese here. Not that kind of cheese. No. We do not speak of such cheese. Not in the study. Can't talk. As for the first, though we were about half a mile away, we could hear them roaring and singing late into the night. And as for the second, the doctor staked his wig that, camped where they were in the marsh and unprovided with remedies, the half of them would be on their backs before a week. So, he added, if we are not all shot down first, they'll be glad to be packing in the schooner. It's always a ship, and they can get to buccaneering again, I suppose. First ship that ever I lost, said Captain Smollett. I was dead tired, as you may fancy. When I got to sleep, which was not till after a great deal of tossing, I slept like a log of wood. The rest had long been up, and had already breakfasted, and increased the pile of firewood by about half as much again, when I was awakened by a bustle, and the sound of voices. "Flag a truce!" I heard someone say, and then immediately after, with a cry of surprise, "Silver himself!" And at that, up I jumped, and rubbing my eyes, ran to a loophole in the wall. Another drink. Chapter 20. Silver's Embassy. Sure enough, there were two men just outside the stockyard, one of them waving a white cloth, the other no less a person than Silver himself, standing placidly by. It was still quite early, and the coldest morning that I think I ever was abroad in, a chill that pierced into the marrow. The sky was bright and cloudless overhead, and the tops of the trees shone rosily in the sun. Where Silver stood with his lieutenant, all was still in shadow, and they waded knee-deep in a low white vapor that had crawled during the night out of the morass. The chill and the vapor taken together told a poor tale of the island. It was plainly a damp, feverish, unhealthy spot. "Keep indoors, men," said the captain. 10 to 1 this is a trick. Then he hailed the buccaneer. "Who goes? Stand or we fire." Gotta get Silver's voice again. Hold on one second, my dear scholars. Flag of truce, cried Silver. The captain was in the porch, keeping himself carefully out of the way of a treacherous shot should any be intended. He turned and spoke to us. Doctor's watch on the lookout. Dr. Livesey take the north side, if you please. Jim the east, Grey west. The watch below, all hands to load muskets. Lively, men, and careful. And then he turned again to the mutineers. And what do you want with your flag of truce? He cried. This time it was the other man who replied. Captain Silver, sir, to come on board and make terms, he shouted. Captain Silver, don't know him. Who's he? Cried the captain. And we could hear him adding to himself, Captain, is it? My heart and here's promotion. Long John answered for himself. Me, sir. These poor lads have chosen me captain after your desertion, sir. Laying a particular emphasis upon the word desertion. We're willing to submit, if we can come to terms, and no bones about it. All I ask is your word, Captain Smollett, to let me safe and sound out of this here stockard, and 1 minute to get out o' shot before a gun is fired. My man, said Captain Smollett, I have not the slightest desire to talk to you. If you wish to talk to me, you can come, that's all. If there's any treachery, it'll be on your side, and the Lord help you. That's enough, Captain, shouted Long John cheerily. A word from you's enough. I know a gentleman, and you may lay to that. We could see the man who carried the flag of truce attempting to hold Silver back. Nor was that wonderful, seeing how cavalier had been the captain's answer. But Silver laughed at him aloud, and slapped him on the back, as if the idea of alarm had been absurd. Then he advanced to the stockard, threw over his crutch, got a leg up, and with great vigor and skill succeeded in surmounting the fence and dropping safely to the other side. I will confess that I was far too much taken up with what was going on to be of the slightest use as sentry. Indeed, I had already deserted my eastern loophole, and crept up behind the captain, who had now seated himself on the threshold, with his elbows on his knees, his head in his hands, and his eyes fixed on the water, as it bubbled out of the old iron kettle in the sand. He was whistling to himself, Come, lasses and lads. Silver had terrible hard work getting up the knoll, what with the steepness of the incline, the thick tree stumps, and the soft sand. He and his crutch were as helpless as a ship in stays, but he stuck to it like a man in silence, and at last arrived before the captain, whom he saluted in the handsomest style. He was tricked out in his best, an immense blue coat, thick with brass buttons, hung as low as to his knees, and a fine laced hat was set on the back of his head. Oh, Julian 20! Redeemed an out of context reading. Hold on, let me grab something to read then. Oh, here we go. Let me see. Let's see if this will work. Okay. I'm sure all the candles went out, he said. So, how did the drum catch fire? And there is your out of context reading, Julian. I hope you'd enjoyed it. Yeah, the out of context readings, they'll be like a short sentence from a book. I won't say what the book is, just that it's out of context completely. And with out of context readings, I will read from both. I'm hoping the system doesn't cause a problem, but I will try and read from both public domain and copyrighted material, but only, like I said, one sentence out of context. So hopefully it won't cause a problem. I don't think it will, because again, it's one sentence. But yeah, I actually that's one of my redeems. I have quite a few redeems actually available to all you fine scholars, so don't be afraid to use them. Where was I? He was tricked out in his best, an immense blue coat, thick with brass buttons, hung as low as to his knees, and a fine laced hat was set on the back of his head. "Here you are, my man," said the captain, raising his head. "You had better sit down. You ain't a going to let me inside, captain?" complained Long John. "It's a main cold morning, to be sure, sir, to sit outside upon the sand." "Why, Silver," said the captain, "if you had pleased to be an honest man, you might have been sitting in your galley. It's your own doing. You're either my ship's cook, and then you were treated handsome, or Captain Silver, a common mutineer and a pirate, and then you can go hang." "Well, well, captain," returned the sea cook, sitting down as he was bidden on the sand. "You'll have to give me a hand up again, that's all. A sweet pretty place you have of it here. Ah! There's Jim. The top of the morning to you, Jim. Doctor here's my service. Why, there you all are, together like a happy family in a manner of speaking." "If you have anything to say, my man, better say it," said the captain. Solar Coast, Jim, Jiminy, Jim, Jim. Oh, that's good. I think that's a reference to something. I'm not sure. Pirate Maverick, you're a professional pirate. Yes. Am I a professional? No, no, oh, no. Reference. I don't know what that's a reference to. "Right you were, Captain Smollett," replied Silver. "Duty is duty, to be sure." And it was written in the dialect, so duty is spelled exactly how you would expect to spell it. "Duty is duty, to be sure. Well, now, you look here. That was a good lay of yours last night. I don't deny it, it was a good lay. Some of you pretty handy with a handspike end. And if not, and I'll not deny neither, but what some of my people was shook. Maybe all was shook. Maybe I was shook myself. Maybe that's why I'm here for terms. But you mark me, Captain. It won't do twice, by thunder. We'll have to do sentry go and ease off a point or so on the rum. Maybe you think we were all a sheet in the wind's eye, but I'll tell you I was sober. I was only dog-tired, and if I'd awoke a second sooner, I'd have caught you in the act. At the act I would. He wasn't dead when I got round to him, not he." "Well," says Captain Smollett, as cool as can be. "All that's... Yeah, I almost went into Silver's voice for our narrator. Oh, boy. All that Silver said was a riddle to me. Yeah, all that Silver said was a riddle to him, but you would never have guessed it from his tone. As for me, I began to have an inkling. Ben Gunn's last words came back to my mind. I began to suppose that he had paid the buccaneers a visit while they all lay drunk together round their fire, and I reckoned up with glee that we had only 14 enemies to deal with. Oh my goodness. Wait. Oh! Oh, I see. So apparently Ben Gunn killed a man while he was sleeping in the among the pirates. Oh. Oh, I see. Oh my goodness. Well, here it is, said Silver. And that never happens in the 1950 movie, by the way. Ben Gunn never kills a man, said Silver. I want that treasure, and we'll have it. That's our point. You would just as soon save your lives, I reckon, and that's yours. You have a chart, haven't you? That's yeah. Gotta get the voice back. That's as maybe, replied the captain. Oh, well, you have it. Well, you have. I know that, returned Long John. You needn't be so husky with a man. There ain't a particle of service in that, and you may lay to it. What I mean is, we want your chart. Now, I never meant you no harm myself. Solar Coast, time for me to sign out for the night. Take care. Good night, Solar Coast. Thank you for coming. That won't do with me, my man, interrupted the captain. We know exactly what you meant to do, and we don't care, for now you see you can't do it. And the captain looked at him calmly and proceeded to fill a pipe. If Abe Gray, Silver broke out. Avast there! Cried Mr. Smollett. Gray told me nothing, and I asked him nothing, and what's more, I would see you and him and this whole island blown clean out of the water into blazes first. So there's my mind for you, my man, on that. This little whiff of temper seemed to cool Silver down. He had been growing nettled before, but now he pulled himself together. Like enough, said he. I would set no limits to what gentlemen might consider ship shape, or might not, as the case were. And seeing as how you are about to take a pipe, captain, I'll make so free as to do likewise. He filled a pipe and lighted it, and the two men sat silently smoking for quite a while, now looking each other in the face, now stopping their tobacco, now leaning forward to spit. It was as good as the play to see them. Now, resumed Silver, here it is. You give us the chart to get the treasure by, and drop shooting poor seamen, and stuffing of their heads in whilst asleep. Huh. So it sounds like Ben actually conked the guy. Oh my goodness, that's a nasty way to die. You do that, and we'll offer you a choice. Either you come aboard along of us once the treasure's shipped, and then I'll give you my affidavy, upon my word of honor, to clap you somewhere safe ashore. Or if that ain't so your fancy, some of my hands being rough, and having old scores on account of hazing, then you can stay here, you can. We'll divide stores with you, man for man, and I'll give my affidavy, as before, to speak the first ship I sight, and send 'em here to pick you up. Now you'll own that's talking. Handsomer you couldn't look to get, not you. And I hope, raising his voice, that all hands in this here blockhouse will overhaul my words, for what is spoke to one is spoke to all. Where was I? Captain Smollett rose from his seat and knocked out the ashes of his pipe in the palm of his left hand. Is that all? He asked. Every last word, by thunder, answered John. Refuse that, and you've seen the last of me but musket balls. Very good, said the captain. Now you'll hear me. If you'll come up one by one, unarmed, I'll engage to clap you all in irons, and take you home to a fair trial in England. If you won't, my name is Alexander Smollett. I've flown my sovereign's colors, and I'll see you all to Davy Jones. You can't find the treasure, you can't sail the ship. There's not a man among you fit to sail the ship. You can't fight us. Gray there got away from 5 of you. Your ship's in irons, Mr. Silver. You're on a lee shore. And so you'll find. I stand here and tell you so, and they're the last good words you'll get from me. For, in the name of heaven, I'll put a bullet in your back when next I meet you. Tramp, my lad, bundle out of this, please, hand over hand, and double quick. Wow. Smollett really is angry. I mean, I can't blame him. I mean, Silver did take away his ship, basically mutineered his entire crew, for the most part. I mean, most of his crew wasn't trustworthy anyway. And, yeah, can't blame him. Silver's face was a picture. His eyes started in his head with wrath. He shook the fire out of his pipe. "Give me a hand up," he cried. "Not I," returned the captain. "Who'll give me a hand up?" he roared. Not a man among us moved. Growling the foulest imprecations, he crawled along the sand till he got a hold of the porch and could hoist himself again upon his crutch. Then he spat into the spring. "There!" he cried. "That's what I think of ye. Before an hour's out, I'll shove in your old blockhouse like a rum puncheon. Laugh, by thunder, laugh! Before an hour's out, ye'll laugh upon the other side. Them that die'll be the lucky ones." And with a dreadful oath he stumbled off, plowed down the sand, and was helped across the stockyard after 4 or 5 failures by the man with the flag of truce, and disappeared in an instant afterwards among the trees. 1 second, scholars, I need to check something. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Thought I heard a noise. And if it was nothing. We'll read our last chapter for the night. And it sounds like an exciting one, too. It's a shorter one. Alright. Chapter 21. The Attack. As soon as Silver disappeared, the captain, who had been closely watching him, turned towards the interior of the house, and found not a man of us at his post, but Gray. It was the first time we had ever seen him angry. "Quarters!" he roared, and then as we all slunk back to our places, "Gray," he said, "I'll put your name in the log. You've stood by your duty like a seaman. Mr. Trelawney, I'm surprised at you, sir. Doctor, I thought you had worn the king's coat. If that was how you served in Fontenoy, sir, you'd have been better in your berth." The doctor's watch was all back at their loopholes. The rest were busy loading the spare muskets, and every one with a red face, you may be certain, and a flea in his ear, as the saying is. The captain looked on for a while in silence. Then he spoke. "My lads," said he, "I've given Silver a broadside. I pitched it in red hot on purpose, and before the hour's out, as he said, we shall be boarded. We're outnumbered, I needn't tell you that. But we fight in shelter, and a minute ago I should have said we fought with discipline. I've no manner of doubt that we can drop them, if you choose. Then he went the rounds and saw, as he said, that all was clear. On the two short sides of the house, east and west, there were only two loopholes. On the south side, where the porch was, two again, and on the north side, 5. There was a round score of muskets for the 7 of us. The firewood had been built into 4 piles, tables, you might say, one about the middle of each side, and on each of these tables some ammunition and 4 loaded muskets was laid ready to the hand of the defenders. In the middle the cutlasses lay ranged. "Toss out the fire," said the captain. "The chill is past, and we mustn't have smoke in our eyes." The iron fire basket was carried bodily out by Mr. Trelawney, and the embers smothered among sand. "Hawkins hasn't had his breakfast. Hawkins, help yourself, and back to your post to eat it," continued Captain Smollett. "Lively now, my lad. You'll want it before you're done. Hunter, serve out a round of brandy to all hands." Is that really smart? I mean, giving alcohol before before you're about to go into a battle? You would think that might not be a good idea. I mean, yes, it might improve your courage a little bit. I mean, they do call it liquid courage, but it also isn't going to help your aiming very well if you have alcohol in you. Oh, hit the wrong button. Whoopsie. Julian 20 takes the edge off. Well, I suppose, but it still seems like such an odd thing. Where am I? Oh yeah. And while this was going on, the captain completed in his own mind the plan of the defense. "Doctor, you will take the door," he resumed. "See and don't expose yourself. Keep within, and fire through the porch. Hunter, take the east side. There. Joyce, you stand by the west. My man, Mr. Trelawney, you are the best shot. You and Gray will take this long north side, with the 5 loopholes. It's there the danger is. If they can get up to it, and fire in upon us through our own ports, things would begin to look dirty. Hawkins, neither you nor I are much account at the shooting. We'll stand by to load and bear a hand." As the captain had said, the chill was past. As soon as the sun had climbed above our girdle of trees, it fell with all its force upon the clearing, and drank up the vapors at a draught. Soon the sand was baking, and the resin melting in the logs of the blockhouse. Jackets and coats were flung aside, shirts thrown open at the neck, and rolled up to the shoulders, and we stood there, each at his post, in a fever of heat and anxiety. An hour passed. "Hang them!" said the captain. "This is as dull as the doldrums. Gray, whistle for a wind." And just at that moment came the first news of the attack. "If you please, sir," said Joyce, "if I see anyone, am I to fire?" "I told you so!" cried the captain. "Thank you, sir," returned Joyce with the same quiet civility. Nothing followed for a time, but the remark had set us all on the alert, straining ears and eyes. The musketeers with their pieces balanced in their hands, the captain out in the middle of the blockhouse, with his mouth very tight and a frown on his face. So some seconds passed, till suddenly Joyce whipped up his musket and fired. The report had scarcely died away ere it was repeated and repeated from without in a scattering volley, shot behind shot like a string of geese, from every side of the enclosure. Several bullets struck the log house, but not one entered, and as the smoke cleared away and vanished, the stockyard and woods around it looked as quiet and empty as before. Not a bough waved, not the gleam of a musket barrel betrayed the presence of our foes. "Did you hit the man?" asked the captain. "No, sir," replied Joyce. "I believe not, sir." "Next best thing to tell the truth," muttered Captain Smollett. "Load his gun, Hawkins. How many should you say there were out on your side, Doctor?"
"I know precisely," said Dr. Livesey. "3 shots were fired on this side. I saw the 3 flashes, 2 close together, 1 farther to the west."
"3," repeated the captain. How many on yours, Mr. Trelawney?"
But this was not so easily answered. There had come many from the north, 7 by the squire's computation, 8 or 9 according to Gray. From the east and west only a single shot had been fired. It was plain, therefore, that the attack should be developed from the north, and that on the other 3 sides we were only to be annoyed by a show of hostilities. But Captain Smollett made no change in his arrangements. If the mutineers succeeded in crossing the stockyard, he argued, they would take possession of any unprotected loophole, and shoot us down like rats in our own stronghold. Another drink of water. Nor he had much. Nor had he. I am fumbling. Nor had we much time left to us for thought. Suddenly, with a loud huzzah, a little cloud of pirates leaped from the woods on the north side and ran straight on the stockyard. At the same moment the fire was once more opened from the woods, and a rifle ball sang through the doorway and knocked the doctor's musket into bits. That is a good shot. Wow. The boarders swarmed over the fence like monkeys. Squire and Gray fired again, and yet again 3 men fell, 1 forwards into the enclosure, 2 back on the outside. But of these, 1 was evidently more frightened than hurt, for he was on his feet again in a crack and instantly disappeared among the trees. 2 had bit the dust. That's interesting to hear that phrase this early in a novel. Huh. To bite the dust. That is interesting. That's an interesting thing to hear. Wonder how early that phrase was. Huh. Something else to research later on. 1 had fled. 4 had made good their footing inside our defenses, while from the shelter of the woods 7 or 8 men, each evidently supplied with several muskets, kept up a hot though useless fire on the log house. The 4 who had boarded made straight before them for the building, shouting as they ran, and the men among the trees shouted back to encourage them. Several shots were fired, but such was the hurry of the marksmen that not one appears to have taken effect. In a moment, the 4 pirates had swarmed up the mound and was upon us. The head of Job Anderson, the boatswain, appeared at the middle loophole.
"At him! All hands! All hands!"
he roared in a voice of thunder. At the same moment another pirate grasped Hunter's musket by the muzzle, wrenched it from his hands, plucked it through the loophole, and with 1 stunning blow laid the poor fellow senseless on the floor. Meanwhile, a 3rd, running unharmed all round the house, appeared suddenly in the doorway, and fell with his cutlass on the doctor. Our position was utterly reversed. A moment since we were firing, under cover, at an exposed enemy. Now it was we who lay uncovered, and could not return a blow. The log house was full of smoke, to which we owed our comparative safety. Cries and confusion, the flashes and reports of pistol shots, and 1 loud groan rang in my ears.
"Out, lads! Out and fight 'em in the open! Cutlasses!" cried the captain.
I snatched a cutlass from the pile, and someone, at the same time snatching another, gave me a cut across the knuckles which I hardly felt. Ouch. I dashed out of the door into the clear sunlight. Someone was close behind, I knew not whom. Right in front, the doctor was pursuing his assailant down the hill, and just as my eyes fell upon him, beat down his guard and sent him sprawling on his back with a great slash across the face. Ooh, such violence. "Round the house, lads, round the house!" cried the captain. And even in the hurly-burly I perceived a change in his voice. Mechanically I obeyed, turned eastwards, and with my cutlass raised, ran round the corner of the house. Next moment I was face to face with Anderson. He roared aloud, and his hanger went up above his head, flashing in the sunlight. I had not time to be afraid, but as the blow still hung impending, leaped in a trice upon one side, and missing my foot in the soft sand, rolled headlong down the slope. When I had first sailed from the door, the other mutineers had been already swarming up the palisade to make an end of us. One man in a red nightcap, with his cutlass in his mouth, had even got upon the top and thrown a leg across. Well, so short had been the interval that when I found my feet again, all was in the same posture. The fellow with the red nightcap still halfway over, another still just showing his head above the top of the stockade. And yet in this breath of time the fight was over, and the victory was ours. Gray, following close behind me, had cut down the big boatswain ere he had time to recover from his lost blow. Another had been shot at a loophole in the very act of firing into the house, and now lay in agony, the pistol still smoking in his hand. A third, as I had seen, the doctor had disposed of at a blow. Of the four who had scaled the palisade, one only remained unaccounted for, and he and he, having left his cutlass on the field, was now clambering out again, with the fear of death upon him. "Fire! Fire from the house!" cried the doctor. "And you, lads, back into cover!" But his words were unheeded. No shot was fired, and the last boarder made good his escape, and disappeared with the rest into the wood. In 3 seconds nothing remained of the attacking party but the 5 who had fallen, 4 on the inside, and 1 on the outside of the palisade. The doctor and Gray and I ran full speed for shelter. The survivors would soon be back where they had left their muskets, and at any moment the fire might recommence. The house was by this time somewhat cleared of smoke. We saw at a glance the price we had paid for victory. Hunter lay beside his loophole, stunned. Joyce, by his, shot through the head, never to move again. While right in the center, the squire was supporting the captain, one as pale as the other. "The captain's wounded," said Mr. Trelawney. "Have they run?" asked Mr. Smollett. "Oh, they could, you may be bound," returned the doctor. "But there's 5 of them will never run again." "5!" cried the captain. "Come, that's better. 5 against 3 leaves us 4 to 9. That's better odds than we had starting. We were 7 to 19 then, or thought we were, and that's as bad to bear." There's a little note at the end of this, on the bottom of the page. The mutineers were soon only 8 in number, for the man shot by Mr. Trelawney on board the schooner died that same evening of his wound. But this was of course not known till after by the faithful party. we will stop there for now. A perfect actually stopping point because we're going to start a new part in the novel. So for now, let's head over to the chat area and we'll close out this evening. Hello again. Hello again, my dear scholars. I hope you've been enjoying the novel. These have been getting exciting and a little bit more violent than they were before. Characters are dropping like flies, both good and bad. Silver's getting a lot nastier than he was. He's a lot nastier in the book than he is in the Disney movie, that's for sure. I'll have to check Muppet Treasure Island. I haven't seen that in a while. I need to rewatch it. Of how Tim Curry played Silver for that. Cool skeleton gunshot to the head. Man, yeah, it is not a nice way to die. It's a really gruesome, really hardcore novel in places, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Really trying. Maybe I will have to see that. Maybe you should see it. I've heard it's an excellent film. I've only seen it once, and that was years back, so my memory of it is very foggy. Other than it has a wonderful opening song. You can probably hear my voice is a little crackly. This took a lot out of me tonight. So, so I should talk about next week. So next week, my dear scholars, we're not going to have a Tuesday stream due to situations. Thursday we will be reading more Treasure Island, as far as I know. Monday though, Monday at around 7 p.m. I will finalize the time. With the time will be finalized. On Monday, we will be having a collab here in the study. I'm really excited. It'll be my first collab I'm hosting. I will be collabing with From the Wastes, another fine reading VTuber. He is a horror-based VTuber. And we will be collabing on a stream based off of folk horror. We're going to be talking about folk horror. We'll read some stories. We'll bring some discussions in for you fine scholars. It'll be a lot of fun. We will finalize a few things before the stream. So keep an eye on Twitter or any news I may give on what it will be. I am really excited, really nervous too. I haven't had a guest in the study in a while. This will be the first time I'll be collabing in the study with a guest. I am really super, super excited. Um, so yes, that is something to look forward to. Helium 20, you will be fine. I hope so. I hope so. So before we close out, let's find someone to raid this fine evening. Let's see. Who can we raid? Oh, Sophia Ignacy is doing a crafting stream. Let's raid her for now. So I say unto you, my dear scholars, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again in the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, bye bye.